First of all, I want to welcome you to the 2014 Mineral County Candidates, Families, Friends, and Neighbors. The candidate forums is being sponsored by the Mineral County Chamber of Commerce. They're the ones that are providing you with your coffee and your cookies for this evening. So what I'd like to do is introduce you to Maria Jarnovic. She's from Milltown. She's a personal friend of mine. I'm going to turn it over to her. She's got some house rules. And good luck, candidates. And don't forget to vote.
Thank you to Mary Jo, the Mineral County Chamber of Commerce, and also to the candidates for taking the time and effort to show up at these forums to be accountable to the residents. As I wait for them to be seated, just to give you an idea as to how this forum is going to be held, the first section of this forum, the first hour of this forum, each of the candidates will be asked 2 questions that each of them have to respond to, and in the second hour, I will ask, time permitted, the questions from the audience, and you can again specifically refer those questions to a specific candidate. All right, the first question is this, and it's a 4-part question, but fairly simple. Identify yourself, your current position, the elected position you're running for, and why you are running for the position. All right, and I'm going to start with you, sir.
My name is Adam Cole. I'm an investigator for the County Attorney's Office. I handle child abuse crimes and whatever else the County Attorney needs. I'm running for County Sheriff. I'm married. My wife is Stacy Cole. We have a 1-year-old daughter, Addison. If she makes a lot of noise, I'm sorry. My decision to run for sheriff has been extremely well thought out. I fully realize the responsibilities that come with the sheriff's office, including changes, improvements to the local law enforcement and critical to our community. Having worked in a variety of law enforcement positions, including deputy, detention, probation, investigation, I feel the next step is sheriff to making a difference. My career and dedication to law enforcement has brought me to this point. I have the experience, dedication, work ethic, leadership ability required to effectively and efficiently perform the duties of sheriff in Mineral County. As sheriff of Mineral County, my team of deputies and I will work to improve the sheriff's office, including being accountable to the citizens, upholding the highest standards of moral and ethical conduct, enforcing all laws under a system of fairness, preserve rights, peace, and public order. Be actively involved in problem solving, actively seeking involvement in community policing, cultivating effective working relationships, striving for personal and professional excellence, improving quality in our life and our community. The Sheriff's Office will gain the trust, respect, involvement in the citizens in our county through community oriented policing. Thank you.
My name is Thomas Bauer, and I'm a college student, nursing program, and I'm a member of the Air National Guard. And I'm running for Mineral County Sheriff. I believe my faith, maturity, and experiences have brought me to this point in time in my life and it's prepared me to be the next Mineral County Sheriff. Mineral County needs effective and trusted law enforcement. I will bring integrity, professionalism, dedication to this position. I will dedicate my life to the citizens of Mineral County as their sheriff. I will ensure that the deputies, undersheriff, and I work with professionalism, integrity, and dedication to be accountable for our actions every day that I'm in office. I will start a citizen safety will be a priority. Illegal drug enforcement, to include all the schools in Mineral County, will also be a priority. I will house federal prisoners in the jail. I will start a narcotics canine program. Through the generation of funds that I get through the federal prisoners and through the narcotics canine program will help us offset costs to help buy equipment and new vehicles for the Sheriff's Office. I will train schools and businesses on active shooter and law enforcement issues. There will be a school resource officer dedicated to drug enforcement and education and law enforcement issues. at all 3 schools. I will start a Sheriff Safety Advisory Council. I will bring back to Mineral County a law enforcement summer camp for the kids in Mineral County. I'd also like to see a safe house in Mineral County, one that the victims of abuse can go to be safe at. Again, my name's Thomas Bauer, and I'm running for Mineral County Sheriff. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Rob Larson. I'm 41 years old, and I'm a current deputy here at the Mineral County Sheriff's Office. I stand here in front of you tonight being a candidate for the Sheriff's Office, for Sheriff and Coroner. I believe the Sheriff must be a manager, a leader, and a peace officer. In Mineral County's case, the Sheriff is not only a peace officer, he patrols and responds to calls in your neighborhood, but he must oversee the budget, manage and lead the deputies, detention staff, and dispatch staff. I believe that a dedicated and effective law enforcement agency is critical to the success of any county, city, or community. In addition, it's my belief that the citizens of Mineral County need and deserve a relationship with the Sheriff's Office that is rooted in trust. And the hardworking men and women of the Mineral County Sheriff's Department deserve that also. I want to be the catalyst that allows us to reach our full potential and provide the highest level of law enforcement services possible. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Toth. I'm currently working in labor relations with Federal Security Guard Union. I am 42 years old, and the reason I'm running for sheriff is because I see an opportunity to rebuild the relationship between the sheriff's office and the community. The sheriff's office, a responsive sheriff's office and engaged community will provide for a more productive and safer environment for the citizens of Mineral County. I've worked for over 17 years in law enforcement. 5 of those years were here in Mineral County. And then I moved on to Seattle PD, and then I went to Renton PD as a detective. Those skills and that work is I've learned to develop the leadership skills, integrity, and dedication required to lead this sheriff's office into a positive direction. This sheriff's office needs to get back to the basics of law enforcement. We need to regain the trust of the community. I want all the citizens to know that when they call 911, somebody's going to come. A deputy's going to respond. We have to hold the deputies accountable for their actions. We have to guide this sheriff's office and rebuild the partnership with the community. It's fractured right now, and I want to see it come back together. And that's why I'm running for sheriff. Thank you.
All right, the question is, tell us 2 law enforcement positions you have held that you believe best qualifies you for sheriff, and why?
Through my career, I don't feel that just 2 positions make me qualified. It's all the positions that I've held that's brought me to this point. The needed skills to be a candidate for sheriff. Providing effective law enforcement requires the knowledge, leadership, and ability to bring together all entities of our community to work as one. I will bring in the intimate working knowledge and understanding of different entities, along with my leadership ability, administrative skills, extensive training, and the person that will bring and provide public safety to Mineral County. Through working with various departments of law enforcement, I was able not only to develop individual skills related to inner workings of each department, I understand and combine with the big picture. I know that all the departments must synchronize and work together to be effective sheriff for this county. Thank you.
Well, first I was a deputy sheriff in Mineral County for about 10 years. A couple of the positions that I held while I was here was a DARE officer, was a narcotics canine handler and trainer. I want to bring back the narcotics canine program because it's a money generator that we're going to need. I'm going to need to see the programs through that I believe will help us with our endeavors here in Mineral County. Going out and talking to the people in Mineral County, one of the issues that they brought up time and time again is the drugs at the school, and that narcotics canine will help deter that. I saw it because I handled one while I was in Mineral County as the deputy sheriff, and it was very effective. The other thing that helps me or makes me qualified is I worked on a federal drug task force for several years. And for about 10 of those years, I was a supervisor where I had to work budgets and money issues. So I have that experience to help me in here with this position. What that also allowed me to do was get a huge network of all other law enforcement individuals, agencies, officers throughout the state and the nation that I can go to with situations I'm not sure how to handle or to get direction, anything like that. And they will help. They've said they will help. I think that's critical because there's going to be things that we'll face that we're not sure what to do. And with their experience and knowledge, it's just tremendous. The former sheriffs have also said that of Mineral County, that if I need any help with anything, they help me also. So I believe those two make me a qualified and experienced candidate for Mineral County Sheriff. Thank you.
As an Army infantry member deployed in Bosnia, that certainly helps you gain a sense of protecting your fellow soldier under difficult conditions. I think my best training for sheriff has come from my over 5 years as being a detention officer in the Missoula County Jail, and over my 7 years as being a peace officer in the state of Montana. My experience as a detention officer in Missoula gives me a pretty good background and has prepared me for the management and operation of Mineral County Jail, which is a large part of the sheriff's responsibility and budget. Additionally, the jail must be run in a proper constitutional order or fashion, or we end up with a lot of expensive lawsuits, which we have and have. Also, as a deputy, I'm a field training officer, a deputy coroner, search and rescue coroner, or coordinator, excuse me, and a senior breath test specialist. So I think I have a good wraparound of everything, most of the things in the department. Being a field training officer, you have to train the new recruits to make sure that they know the job out there, they know policies and procedures, and they know what they're doing out there. Thank you.
The two positions I've held that I think would best help me here would be the fact that I worked for Mineral County for 5 years. In those 5 years, I was the head narcotics officer, lead officer for the department. I was involved in more drug interdiction stops on the interstate than any deputy. One of 3 deputies involved in the largest cocaine seizure, which led to $92,000 being put in a drug forfeiture fund. The other part of me is I went to Seattle and Renton as a detective, where obviously I learned crime scene investigations, how to do proper paperwork, working with search warrants, working with county attorneys and city attorneys, and building that partnership up in law enforcement. All that together, I can lead this department and I can make a difference for Mineral County. With that comes a great responsibility. That because the residents and I want to work out with the county for the first time, and I want to be your next sheriff. Thank you.
I believe that these gentlemen deserve a round of applause. Thank you so much. So the first question is the same as that which was asked of the sheriffs. Identify yourself, your current occupation, the elected position you're running for, and why you are running for the position.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. My name is Dwayne Simons. I reside in St. Regis. I've lived in Mineral County for 41 years, all 41 years in St. Regis, Montana. My current occupation is I work at Tricon Timber. I run a 966 front end loader in their log yard, and my part-time job, which is also a full-time job, is your Mineral County West End Commissioner. So the seat I am running for is Mineral County Commissioner. I've been the Commissioner for 6 years. And the reason that I'm running is I feel that I have experience that is beneficial to Mineral County. In the past, I've been on school board 9 years in St. Regis. I was on the sewer board there for 3 years. I was community council president for a number of years. I was president of the Baseball Association and also a coach. I love Mineral County, and I want to see things get better. I think that when I took office in 2008, things were kind of in the dumps, and we're making a rebound now. I think the jobs are starting to pick back up, and people are getting back to work and feeling better. I can't say that I can take all the credit for that, but I'd like to. I think my experience that makes me most qualified here is one of the things. I'm a sitting member on the Mako Forested Counties Coalition, and we deal with issues that are related to our county's funding. I also sit on the Mineral County Health Board. I'm the president of that, and I'm also on the Area 6 Aging Board. And I guess I would just like to say I'd like to make things better in Mineral County, and I appreciate that. Your vote.
Good evening. I'm Tony Pearson from Little Joe Road, St. Regis. Bought a ranch there in 1970. Commuted back and forth between there and Oregon for 20 years. Usually come in the summertime, take some timber out, and then moved here permanently 12 years ago. I've been involved with my own business and my own logging company, my own trucking company. The truck company I just sold the truck in January. I had a new knee put in because I didn't want to hire a driver. There's no money in hiring drivers, so I just sold it. But I was the first one in Mineral County to transport cottonwood to Vancouver, Washington to get peeled for plywood. That was good till the SMC come into effect, and I couldn't haul any more timber on my bottom ground. So I'm running for county commissioner because I've had extensive contracts negotiations with the Forest Service, the BLM, and private timber owners, and I know how to make things happen, get along with the Forest Service and the BLM and private people along the street. I also logged the Superior Cemetery here about 10 years ago. So that's why I'm running for county commissioner. I'd like to introduce my wife, Roseanne Pearson, married for 50 years, and I'll stand up.
My name is Bob McCandless, or Robert McCandless. You may call me Robert or Bob, as long as I'm not late for dinner. And that would be more important. I am retired. My wife and I moved from Kalispell to Hagen. We live in Bear Lake Park. And some people wonder about that name, but it's an official kind of thing. If you're a deer, you would really understand, because there was a salt lake there at one time. The reason I'm running is that I want to represent the West End in a diligent manner and to be readily available to all residents in the county, or in the county, and especially the ones in the West End. A lot of times, I think the people that live in the far West End feel a little left out, and I'm not sure that they have enough courage sometimes to come to a commissioner's meeting or to ask questions. And at any rate, one nice thing about living in Hagen and being retired is that gives me plenty of time to do the things that I would like to do. with this position, which is to be readily available to every person that lives there. They can call me on the phone. I even thought it would be wonderful if I could, we use the Oasis as a meeting place for many things. But I would be willing to spend time 1 day a week, 2 days a week, whatever it would take, to meet the people's need to come and speak to the commissioner. And my time is up, I'm sure. But thank you for listening, and it's been fun.
Mr. McCandles, if you could stay at the microphone, I'm going to ask you the second question.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Would you support higher taxes to maintain current levels of services expected of your constituents? Why or why not?
Boy, that isn't a loaded question. Raise your hand if you would like higher taxes. Yeah, I didn't think so. It's interesting. We all want services, and we all want things, but when it comes to paying taxes for those things, that seems to be kind of an impossible task. We don't want to do it. You get your tax bill, and unless it goes down, and you're happy, you go, it went up again. And, and this happens. But our taxes and the money that's generated from them give us all of the things that we want to get from our county government. So it's very important. It's also important, I think, for the county and the commissioners to seek other ways of getting revenue. There are grants that are available, and so if we work hard and seek grants and apply for them, we can offset a lot of the expenses that we have. Overall, because I know I'm going to get cut off in about 20 seconds, that's tough for me, believe it or not. We have to be most aware for everyone in one department, as well as others. But to me, the main one is the safety and welfare of every person that lives in this county. And that's pretty big nut to crack. We have miles and miles of roads. A lot of them are in need of repair, and pretty soon the 9-second sign's going to be there. But there are things that we can do to improve everything for the things that people need to be safe and to have a quality life. And so thank you for listening, and thank you for signing. It's better than the Hill.
Being in the timber industry can't carry this county alone. We got to have it. We got to have other entities of income coming in. Up higher yet. Number one would be a plastic molding injection plant being placed in Mineral County. Another one would be diversified in recreation, of course, but that only is in the summertime, usually available in the winter. But you got to find some other means besides the timber, because by the time you get to these timber sale contracts, it's already too far gone to salvage it. We can't salvage it in time, we lose it. So I'm looking at other entities. The plastic molding injection plant would work very well in Mineral County. So.
Well, both the speakers before me didn't really answer this question, I don't feel. And so I believe I will answer it. If any of you know me, you know that I'll look you in the eye and give you a straight answer. And yes, I would support raising taxes to supply the services in Mineral County that we now enjoy. Nobody likes higher taxes, but we are faced with some things coming in the future that we may lose some of the funding from our federal government and the way our federal government's budget is now. A large part of the county budget we received from Secure Rural Schools and from PILT funding. And both of those have been threatened over the last few years and are even more threatened this coming years, that we may lose those. And so as a last resort, yes, I would say yes, I would volunteer to raise taxes. You know, it's like Bob said, that's a loaded question. Nobody likes to see them go up. But I've lived here for 41 years, and I've paid my taxes gladly. What I'm really more interested in is whether I'm working and whether I have a good paying job. If I have a good paying job and I'm out there working on whatever I'm doing, I can pay those taxes. I think that's what the question really ought to be, is can we create more jobs so that we can pay our taxes and afford the things that Mineral County has to give us. And some of this stuff is spelled out in law, law enforcement. We do have to supply law enforcement. At what level we supply law enforcement is another matter. And I'm down to 10 seconds here, so I'll try and shut up. But yes, I would support higher taxes as a last resort. Thank you.
Again, I'm really impressed with the answers, and I believe these gentlemen also deserve a round of applause. Thank you so much. All right, the first question is the standard question, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you, sir, start first with the question, response to the question. And again, the question is, identify yourself, your current occupation, the elected position you're running for, and why you are running for that position.
Hi, my name is Mark Grimm. I own a custom cabinet shop here in Mineral County, and I'm running for Justice of the Peace. You know, when I first started this campaign, man, I nearly threw up on my shoes. And I was scared, unsure, and apprehensive. But as the campaign progressed, I realized from talking with so many of you that we all recognize that change is needed in the Justice Court. I am the person to make those changes. I will make positive changes to the Justice Court in Mineral County. I am supposed to be right here, right now. I have the following goals for the improvement of the Justice Court. Improve customer service to the public in the following ways. Reduce the time required to process cases. Minimize the time spent by litigants waiting at the courthouse. Providing more public information about the court procedures. Trying new programs such as modified hours for civil and criminal courts for public convenience. Improve security. Ongoing staff training. To ensure the quality of justice provided by the court, increase uniformity in procedures. Ensure accountability for quality. Consideration of using alternative dispute resolution. Planning for the needs of the youth, elderly, mentally ill, and others. Again, staff training. Improvement of the infrastructure of the court.
5 seconds.
The improved use of technology as a process for accomplishing goals. 5 seconds? Okay. Citations and monies are handled on a daily basis by the Justice Court staff. My first duty as Justice of the Peace will be to institute new management procedures recommended by the Courts of Limited Jurisdiction, Automation Advisory and Accounting Practices Committee to ensure checks and balances for all citations and monies handled by the Justice Court.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Pat Morgan, and I'm running for Justice of the Peace. And I live here in Alberton, and I've been married to my husband Dennis, who's hiding in the back there, for 42 years. And I currently am private contracting with a couple of attorneys, working on trial documentation and marketing for a law firm. And I want to run for Justice of the Peace because I feel that the office of justice should be done in a professional manner with honesty and integrity, and that each case should be looked at as an individual case, and the laws and the facts of each case need to be considered, and supply justice for all with no stereotyping of any kind. And so, again, I'm running for Justice of Peace. Thank you.
I'm Julie Ballinger, and I'm currently the Mineral County Buckle Up Coordinator and the Scram Manager for the Department of Transportation DUI courts that Montana DOT funds their treatment courts. The position I'm running for is Justice of the Peace, and the reason I'm running, I believe I have the knowledge and skills needed to make a smooth transition when Judge James's term ends. I'm in no way saying that I have the same experience that she has, but my extensive court experience has afforded me the day-to-day experience needed to handle all misdemeanor cases and felony initial appearances, as well as all civil proceedings. My customer service experience has given me the skills needed to be able to work with the public in a professional yet effective manner. Previously, I worked for a potpourri company where I handled Walmart, Target, Michael's, all their accounts receivable. Walmart at the time was $65 million a year. Target and Michael's were a close second. So I can handle accounting procedures as well as the day-to-day court procedures. This is not a consumer-based business. The justice system is designed to handle offenses and civil matters in the here and now. During the sentencing procedure, the Justice of the Peace needs to follow the law and the sentencing requirements, as well as review the person's criminal history. Following the law ensures fair and consistent justice provided by the court. Lastly, I'm the only Justice of the Peace candidate running that has been nationally trained to participate in the treatment court program. By me already having this training, the transition in the treatment court program would run smoothly, as I am already familiar with the 10 guiding principles of a treatment court and the best practices. And that's why I'm running for Mineral County Justice of the Peace. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Doug Sharkey. I'm currently retired, and I too am running for Justice of the Peace. There's a myriad of reasons that I have chosen to run for Justice of the Peace this year. One of them is the fact that the seat is open. But my wife and I have a pretty extensive background in law enforcement. I was a state trooper here in the area. My wife was a dispatcher and a misdemeanor probation officer. I also had the pleasure of the last 6 months of filling in as the Justice of the Peace here in Mineral County. And I found that even though I'm retired, and anyone else here that's been in law enforcement understands it, that never really gets out of your blood. The time that I spent in justice court brought back my desire to continue working with and for the people of Mineral County. One of the things that I think that I really want to do and that was difficult for me to deal with was the recidivism or the repeat offender rate. I saw an awful lot of people that I have arrested 15 years ago or 10 years ago. I'd like to put a stop to that, and I think a little bit firmer justice would help with that. And I also think that we have a lot of outstanding fines that have gone to collections that I think we can take back into the court and bring some revenue back into the county. I found that doing it for 6 months, you find out whether or not you're suited for the job. I feel that I am, and I feel that I'll do a great job for the county. And once again, I'm Doug Sharkey, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
My name is Dale Magone, and I've been married to Becky Simpkins Magone for 38 years. We raised 2 sons. One served in the military in the Army for 12 years. 18 months was spent in Iraq. He currently works for the Department of Defense. Our other son has been in the Navy for 5 years, and he just re-enlisted. We've lived in Superior and in the area most of our life, and I've worked as a volunteer fireman for the city of Superior and on the city council as alderman and mayor. My current occupation is I'm barbering in Missoula, but I recently graduated from the University of Montana with a Bachelor of Science degree, and also I have an associate's degree in energy technology. I am running for Justice of the Peace because I would like to see that Mineral County the area be preserved for raising our children and living in. The poor economic conditions have brought about change over my lifetime, that there's been an increase in social problems. And I think the law enforcement and the Office of Justice of the Peace could be used to address those problems, help the people that are having difficult times get the help they need, and like Doug said, the repeat offenders should be dealt with firmly. Thank you.
All right. What accounting practices do you feel need to be made to ensure the integrity of the Justice of the Peace Office?
Well, I think the accounting practices are pretty well laid out in the state of Montana Justice of the Peace manual, where the clerk receives the money and accounts for all cash and check transactions. They record all the monies received, issue carbon copy receipts, and keep a journal, an electronic journal, to record all the transactions. I would never want to be put in a position that the Justice of the Peace Department has been in the last year. I don't know what happened, and from what I understand, the Department of Justice has not figured it out either. And one thing I pride myself in is honesty. And to go through what Wanda went through this last year would be devastating. So I think that I would want to work very closely with the clerk and issue checks and balances to make sure that all transactions are handled properly and recorded accurately. Thank you.
Well, I think you'll find when you hear from us tonight that we're going to have similar answers in the fact that there's already a computer system in place for the justice courts for the intake and output of citations and of monies. Unfortunately, one of the problems that apparently occurred is that on the end of that, there wasn't enough oversight of what was occurring between the officer and the court. I think if we just keep that system in place and make sure that it's monitored properly, that we can probably bring this to a halt. I know that currently the Department of Criminal Investigation and the courts of limited jurisdiction are trying to put in some more stopgaps in there to make sure that this works. But the bottom line, when I am elected, is that I will ensure that the clerks utilize this system properly and that we institute the stopgaps and the safety nets that are already in there. I will ensure that there are reports given to me, certainly initially on a weekly basis, then maybe we can get it down to a monthly basis. But the bottom line is, although the clerks handle the citations and the monies, the bottom line is it's my responsibility as the Justice of the Peace to be responsible for that, and I will. If everything is not accounted for, we're not going to leave until it's done, and to make sure that everything balances and everything is there. And I'll make sure that is all matched with the sheriffs, motor carriers, and the highway patrol. Thank you.
As Doug indicated, the accounting practices are in place, and the software currently used in Justice Court is part of the full court software that is supplied by the Court of the Office Administrator's Office, which is the Supreme Court. Deposits.
There you go.
Is that better? You want me to repeat everything? Okay, as Doug indicated, the accounting practices are in place, and the software currently used in Justice Court is part of the full court software system that is supplied to the court by the Supreme Court. Deposits are made daily with 2 people handling the deposits. The issue that I see that Justice Court currently doesn't have control over is when law enforcement leaves their citations and bond after hours. And we could remedy that by putting a lockbox in, maybe at the sheriff's office. That would be something we'd have to facilitate. And running the reports, as they've indicated, running the reports, doing the checks and balances, and making sure everything matches up. And other than that, the Supreme Court is working with our court here now. There are some glitches with full court, as Pat can relate to. She had some issues in Missoula. Full court's not perfect, and they are working on getting the bugs out.
Okay,
I worked as a court administrator in Missoula for 10 years, where I handled all phases of not only managing and supervising the court, but also the financials. I also helped train the software that the courts are currently using, and I ran reports using that software. In 10 years, I never had a problem with it. There was a problem when the software was first initiated, and I did point that problem out to the Supreme Court, and it was fixed. But just using and monitoring the software and doing all of the monthly and the weekly and the quarterly reports, I can analyze all of those reports and did that for 10 years without a problem. It's just a matter of making sure you manage it and making sure you do run those reports. So along with my 10 years of experience as a court administrator and my master's in legal studies working with the courts, I think I am pretty well qualified to handle that, and I don't think I'd have a problem. Thank you.
The Courts of Limited Jurisdiction Automation and Advisory Accounting Practices Committee was formed to assist Montana's justice, city, and municipal courts in meeting statutory requirements for automation and reporting, and to assist in coordination, planning, enhancements, and implementation of automation for Montana courts. The committee is made up of justice, city, and municipal judges from around the state. The committee may also assist in recommending technical solutions and automation priorities. In addition, the committee assists in developing and supporting courts of limited jurisdiction case management accounting practices. The committee also provides governance in dealing with frequent and continual requests for accounting support that reach beyond the scope of IT services. I'll be contacting the Automation Advisory and Accounting Practices Committee to schedule an immediate formal review and recommendation of accounting and automation practices and procedures for our Justice Court. We will immediately implement the recommendations of this committee. Implementing these recommendations will get the integrity of the Justice Court on the right track. We don't need to reinvent the wheel to ensure the integrity of the court. Best practices are out there. The committee was created to help with the exact issues our court is experiencing. The Justice of the Peace is solely responsible for the accounting practices of the Justice Court. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your answers. And thanks to the audience members who are keeping track of time as well. All right, our final group has actually dwindled down to one. We have a Mr. Nick Schwaderer, did I pronounce that correctly? Who has shown up to respond to questions with regards to House District 14. All right, so would you like me to repeat that first question for you? Okay, all right, perfect.
I promise I didn't try to scare anyone off tonight. There are two other folks running for this office. I understand they're in another county, so it might be a bit of a trip. My name is Nicholas Schwader. I am currently your representative for House District 14, and I'm running for re-election. Fun fact, I remember the last time I was in this room was in high school, and I was set up on a blind date for prom. So I already associate this room with fear. Just so you know. House District 14 is running from 9 Mile down to Idaho and Dixon, Perma, Camas Prairie, Hot Springs, Lone Pine, and Plains and Sanders were a lot of the schools I remember playing basketball against. I went to St. Regis High School down the way, so all that rivalry stuff, I'm kind of torn living in Superior now and also representing the whole area. It's a kind of emotional. And I wrote for the now defunct Clark Fork Chronicle after high school for about 4 years. I also worked down at Tricon Timber until some folks may remember the big layoffs in 2008. Pretty tough times, and then went out to work for Tombstone Pizza in Wisconsin and saved up money and ended up getting my Bachelor of Science in Law and Business. I'm running today for re-election pretty much because of one number, that's 10.8. That's the unemployment percentage in Mineral and Sanders counties right now. I think that's unacceptable. I think there's a lot of opportunities where we can move in the right direction. And as a lot of you know, if you think over the last 6 years, we all know somebody who left to work elsewhere. So we know that that number is actually higher, and seeing what tools we can do to improve the future for our community. As a millennial, I know that the foundation of policy we lay for government today, I will probably have to put up with for longer than most of the people in this room. So I think it's important that we do it right.
All right, he's going to get one more question, and that is, what is your opinion of the Common Core curriculum?
All right, so I sit on the House Education Committee, and I got more letters from parents and families and Mineral County residents on this than any other issue during the session. And it's a big issue that's important to a lot of folks. So just for a debrief, the Common Core curriculum is a set of standards for where students should be every single year of their education. There are 44 states that have implemented it. The Montana Board of Public Education implemented it in 2011, and it covers math and English, and as you know, English is a kind of a wider subject area, and it sets those standards. As far as how I feel from a policy perspective as a legislator, I'm not comfortable with the fact that a body that is not democratically elected or accountable to the people via elections ratified this. Also, there are standards that if there are policies that affect the budgets of our schools, that it has to go through the legislature and actually go through these bodies to be done that has not been done. The costs that we have from legislative fiscal division are in the millions. And also, I have full faith in our school boards and teachers and Office of Public Instruction in Montana to be able to set the standards and find that more locally instead of outsourcing standards. I understand the sentiments of folks who see the rest of the world and want to compete and want to do the best we can, but I have full faith that we can do that locally here in Montana.
And this is the question, rephrased to some extent. There is a perception out in the community, real or not, that you have always voted against public education during your first term. How do you respond to that, sir?
All right, so it becomes a tough issue, especially when we talk about funding and policy with education and a limited budget that we have to work with. And there's a lot of votes that go through House Education. And a few ways that I can think of, I sponsored a bill to take all of our lottery revenues, which are about $15 million a year, and bring them back to their original purpose as intended in the 1980s when the voters approved the state lottery, which was teacher retirement security. Right now that's in flux through the general fund. So, and that bill went through, ended up getting washed out in the Senate. They said it wasn't cool enough, to use a light term, I can't quote what they said there. And also I voted for monies to go to the St. Regis School to make them ADA compliant in their gymnasium. And I also voted for funding this to expand the technology capabilities of the Plains Elementary School. I voted for things that specifically help this community. When we had funding bills that were skewed against the rural educators and skewed more towards the larger schools with more money going that way, I voiced my concern and voted for amendments that would make the basic entitlements better for the more rural schools, and even though I got ran over by the larger folks. Thank you.
Go ahead and stay at the microphone. Thank you so much. I have a second question for Mr. Schwatter. Again, real or not, there is a perception in the community that you have turned away free federal dollars for health care for fear of what happens 3 years from now. How would you like to respond to that?
Well, I don't know about the perception in the community. The majority of the contact I've gotten has not indicated that, only a little bit the other way. We're talking about is Medicaid expansion, which is a component of Obamacare, which was carried by Baucus and passed a few years ago. 26 states have accepted it. One with the Arkansas model, 24 have turned it down. this is a situation where we bring in about, you can count on $700 million in income tax revenues. And in a session or so, we're going to have about $190 million new obligation from the state per biennium on top of the federal contribution that we will be liable for. And also with the expansion of services that comes from the federal monies, we will be on the hook for that. If anybody remembers the sequester, the state and local counties had to come up with monies for services when the feds couldn't do their job and pay their bills and come out here. So what we're saying is that we're kind of co-signing a loan if we expand that. So we're guaranteed $190 million per biennium in new money that we have to take from somewhere else. And also we're going to be on the hook for about 9 times more than that if the feds don't do their job, and I don't trust the Congress.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. How will you bring businesses to our county and get our employees up to a living wage?
Okay, the first part of the question was, how am I going to bring jobs here?
Right.
That's a tough question because Mineral County is 82%, 82.1 by the last statistics that I had, federally owned. So we have a very limited land base here, for one thing, for companies to come in. And the other thing is we also have a smaller tax base because of this federal land ownership. We do have an economic development corporation within the county, and they work with the commissioners, and we look at different things. Currently, we're looking at an expansion out at our county airport to try and draw businesses in. With everything that goes along with that, we always run into a stone wall. You try to bring businesses out to the airport. The airport doesn't have three-phase power that might support businesses. So we're trying to get three-phase power out there. Everything moves real slow in that respect. Through the economic development and talking to businesses, we've had phone calls to interested businesses, or probably interested businesses, excuse me. And that's how we would attempt to bring businesses to the county. Okay. And the second part?
How will you get the employees up to a living wage?
Are they supposed to have both of these in a minute 5, minute and a half?
No, there should be a minute, a minute and a half. Did he already?
Okay, he's over a minute and a half.
Oh, okay. Let's have you answer the question. We'll have to do that, I'm sorry. Let's do that. Could you do that succinctly?
Okay, that's probably the toughest question that I've ever been asked, how to bring everything up to a living wage. You know, you look around the country, Seattle just voted that they were going to raise their living wage to, their starting wage to $15 an hour. But I don't know how you do that in Mineral County when you have so few businesses supporting us. And I don't know if you're ever going to have a $12 an hour starting wage here. I would like to see that, but it's going to be very, very difficult. I don't know if I have a definitive answer for that.
Well, thank you for your honesty, sir.
First question again.
How will you bring businesses to our county and get our employees up to a living wage?
I mentioned earlier the plastic molding injection plant. Well, you can bring parts out of China to get that into operation. But that'd be a wonderful thing for using our plastic that's being shipped elsewhere, and it's a renewable resource that we can use. And I know they got one injection plant down by Three Forks, and they're busy all the time down there. Things made out of plastic, and like you say, there's no three-phase power at the airport. I don't know when they'll get it, but that'd help bring the wages up. Consequently, there's no federal logging to speak of. There's no competition for logs when we have one sawmill in the area to compete with other mills, because my private timber, they give me a certain price, I can't afford to log it because they get the end product out of it, the lumber, and most of the lumber's going to North Dakota, but I don't see it in my part. So my timber's got to sit and grow till we get some more competition for the timber.
You know, there has to be businesses that would like to relocate to a place like this. I think we have to look and search and not just get on the internet and type something in Google, but we have to really be diligent about seeking out the kind of businesses that could come here, hire our people, and then produce things that are environmentally friendly to our river. And I think that's really crucial, because I don't know that about you, but as a fisherman, I don't know that I want to eat a 15 or 16-inch trout, because that's the time of that age of a trout and that size of a trout, they're the ones that begin to have wonderful things like mercury into their system. I know that in other communities, they have been able to find a business that would come in, and a great example was Kalispell. And Ray Thompson happened to move to Kalispell. He started Semi-Tool, which employs hundreds of people now. And there are places still that could be purchased. There are places that a person could come. And we have students every year that graduate from our high schools that would make absolutely excellent workers. And instead, there's no place for them to work. They leave, they go to other towns or whatever. And we need, I think, as commissioners, it's really our duty to search and not give up, and to find people to come here with decent businesses. So.
Number 2, how do you feel about federal ACA healthcare dollars not coming into the county?
If we have the right to those dollars, we should get them. And I really don't know how that whole process works, but I think if I were waiting for this money and we didn't get it, I'd get on the phone, I'd talk to the county attorney, I'd talk to every attorney I could find, talk to people that know about that whole program, and to see why we don't get it. That's the best I guess I can give you, because I haven't got a clue.
Well, thank you very much.
I don't like federal money because I don't know how they're going to tie it up, or what we'll be obligated for federal money. And I'm dealing with the NRCS right now on this QUIP program about thinning my timber that's getting too thick. And they're saying it costs $700 an acre to thin that. And I say, why can't I do that myself? They say, you can do it yourself, but we want to monitor that. I said, well, don't you think the landowner can monitor himself just as well as the federal government can? We're the ones that own the land, so. But I don't like federal money under my Social Security that I paid in.
Well, that's a statement. I don't like federal money, but we're living in a county that is very dependent on federal money. We get a lot of federal money, secure rural schools, PILT. Some of our health programs through the Mineral County Health Department are funded by the federal government. And it is my understanding, and Nicholas is sitting here someplace, he could probably correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that we didn't get the affordable health care money was that the Republican legislature over in Helena turned it down. Now, if you remember back 4 years ago, I believe it was 4 years ago, there was some stimulus money that Obama put out there. That was brought to Mineral County, and there were those out there that said, don't take it, don't take it. Mineral County took that money, and we used that money to renovate our courthouse. We used that money to do an energy efficient project on our courthouse. So I think, you know, if we were entitled to that money, we should have got it, but we didn't, and I think the state legislature is the one that's responsible for that. My feelings is, if it was ours, we should have got it.
All right. How important is it to be in the office during the hours that commissioners are scheduled?
How important is it? It's very important. It's also very difficult for me in particular, because I work 2 jobs. Tricon Timber, I'll give you a little background myself. In 2006, I was a logger. I injured myself in a job retraining program. I went to work at Tricon Timber. I got laid off in 2008 when everything went in the toilet. I was rehired later, and then I ran for commissioner and was elected, and I asked Tricon if I could have a night job. And so now I work nights, and in fact, when I leave this, I'll go back down to Tricon and go back to work there in the yard. It is difficult for me to be there all the hours that we should. There is in state law, you list the hours that you're supposed to be there. We do list those. I don't know if any one of the commissioners is there all the hours it is listed. We try to be. We keep in touch over the phone. We keep in touch over the internet. And but yes, it is important to be there as much as we can be.
It's very important because you're on a salary and you're supposed to be there. They depend on you to be there. And I think that's number one obligation, to be there when you're supposed to be there. Just like when hiring somebody to log in. They need to be there on time and quit on time.
For me, being retired, if I have to be there 5 days a week, I'll be there. I don't really care. As much time as it takes to do the job, I have the time now to give. Besides, if I stay home too much, my wife will work me to death. Now, the pay's pretty good because she's a good cook. But if I'm a commissioner, I'll be there. If I'm not there, I would be like in Hagen at the Oasis, answering people's questions and then going to work. To me, it's a full-time job. And I agree that if you're if you're getting full-time pay, you need to earn it. And with technology, it's kind of wonderful. I could sit with my laptop and doing things that I need to do for the job of commissioner. And I could maybe do some things at home, but I would always be working towards the betterment of this county and the communities that are here.
All right, so this final question is, do you support the state controlling our forests?
I guess the actual answer is no. I think that they probably have the rights to control it, but I think that they're really very strict. An interesting thing that happens is people are afraid that if we're going to log, that the trees are going to disappear, I guess, or it's going to take forever for them to grow back. Well, if you cut down lodgepole pine, where we live, if we cut down a tree, 10 more are growing by next year. And the same thing is true. If the squirrels are up at the thing, eating the pine cones, spitting out the seeds, trees will grow. And you can look at a place that's, I don't know, in Flathead County. They went in and clear-cutted a bunch of places and people thought it was horrible. 5 years later, you couldn't walk through the forest because of the trees. It would be really nice if we could control the forests that are here in our county. We have people that are qualified. Forest Service could probably even, if they weren't so bound by the federal government, then maybe they could control it and we could start harvesting the timber that's here.
I support the state controlling their forest. I don't expect the state to control my forest. But I don't like the federal police force, that's for sure. When they come on my private property and cut my trees down. So, no, I don't want the state controlling my forest. They control their own forest, I think that's good. They have state timber sales, that's their responsibility to control it, but not private timber.
Yes, I do support the state controlling our forest. I think what the question is getting at is the talk of a land transfer between the federal government and the state of Montana. Sorry. It's like it was an ice cream cone. I do support the state handling our forest, owning our forest. What they were talking about there, I believe, is the transfer of federal lands to the state of Montana. And there are still some questions out there that need to be answered as to where we would be if they did that tomorrow. Would we get our PILT? Would we get secure rural schools for a time being? But the state, if you look around here, and the I-90 fire just up the road here is a perfect example. That burnt in 2003. The state was out there marking trees the next day when the trees were still smoking. The Forest Service never put a timber sale up on that same hill. And they're locked up in, the Forest Service is locked up in litigation. Montana has a simpler, but also has a NEPA process called MEPA. And they do go through the environmental process like the Forest Service does, but they don't allow litigants in their system to tie up things like they do in the Forest Service for 5, 6, 10 years at a time. And that's why I support the state having control of our forest. Plus, it would be dollars to the state, it would be dollars to the schools. So, yes, I do support that.
All right, a round of applause for Stuart and his family. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right, this question. Tell us about a time when you had to be a fair judge, setting aside your personal beliefs and prejudices, and based a decision on fact alone.
Okay, well, actually, I've never been a judge. So, I have worked in the municipal court for 10 years, and I have had to make do a lot of research for my judge on cases. And it's just a matter of you look at the facts and you look at the laws, and your own personal feelings don't ever enter into it. It can't enter into it in order to have fair justice. So I've never had a problem with that. I've done a lot of research. I've written a lot of case decisions along with my judge, and I've just never had a problem with that. So
I've never had to be a judge, and I've never been put in that situation. I have been involved on the treatment court side where we act as a team, and I've had to make decisions and act fairly and impartial, set my differences aside on that. So that is really the only time that I've had to be involved in putting my differences aside, doing what's right. So I've never had to be a judge.
For 12 years, I worked as a mediator for Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse. I mediated about 20,000 jobs, and I can't pick out one in particular, but you just learn to be fair and impartial. And I hope I gave you some of your time back.
And I too am going to save you an awful lot of time here. Every case that I've heard on the bench.
Okay, I've never had to be a judge either, but I guess I could relate it to working in the insurance industry where you dealt with claims dispute resolution. Sometimes there was claims that you had to decide whether you were going to pay or not pay, but you had to base your decision on the rules of the insurance company, even if you didn't agree with them. Sometimes I had difficulty with that, but it had to be done, and I felt bad for the people you had to deal with. Thank you.
For frequent offenders, how do you expect to handle them and get them off our streets?
First-time offenders, I believe you need to work with them as much as possible and get them help to deal with their problems. But repeat offenders are a whole different thing. Evidently, they cannot learn their lesson. It's expensive to send them to jail, but sometimes you have to do it and get them off the streets before they hurt somebody else or cause more social problems. Thank you.
Well, as I alluded to in my opening statement, That's one of the biggest problems that I've seen sitting on the bench, is that there are way too many frequent offenders. The only way to deal with that is, as he said, you know, your first-time offenders, you have a little latitude, but when you have repeat offenders, you just need to start giving maximums and put them in jail until they get the point. Here with our economy, fining them isn't really much of a deterrent, because if they can't pay it, they can't pay it. So unfortunately, you have to make the tough decision, and you hear every excuse in the book why they can't go to jail, but you don't hear one excuse why they can't stop breaking the law. So it's our duty as a judge then to bring the maximum penalties of the law to them, so that hopefully they will eventually get the point.
As Justice of the Peace, you're required to stay within statute, and each case should be looked at individually if you're a fair and impartial judge. I'll do what it takes to do what I believe is right. Thank you.
As Mark indicated, you do need to follow the statute and the sentencing requirements. You also take the criminal histories into consideration while you're doing your sentencing. If there's an underlying issue, a chemical dependency issue, that might be driving your offender to be committing those crimes. There's also the treatment component that might help them be rehabilitated. So sentencing to jail doesn't always work if there's underlying mental health issues or other chemical dependency issues. So treatment along with stiffer sentencing guidelines also, they can kind of go hand in hand. So there's a couple different things you could look at when you're doing your sentencing.
Okay, with repeat offenders, again, you do have to stay within the law, and you have some judicial discretion within minimums and maximums. Sometimes there's no room at the jail, so you can't put them in the jail. But one of the big things that, as a justice, that you can do, there's a lot of offenses that are known as stackable offenses, and if you do your judge properly on the bench, then those stackable offenses do get stacked up, and if they continue, then they get to the point where they do go to jail, or there are stiffer consequences. If, as a justice of the peace, you don't do your job right, and they've done that offense maybe 3 times, and you haven't handled it properly by having all the right documents signed and their waiver of rights, then legally it gets challenged, and it isn't a 3rd offense. It may only be a 1st or a 2nd offense. So I think to start with is you need to make sure as a justice that you're doing your job on the bench properly, so that on stackable offenses, people can be held more accountable.
How will you handle all the outstanding unpaid fines?
Oh, I'm really familiar with that. When I started in municipal court, there were lots of unpaid fines. I handled a budget of over $2 million in fines that had to come in. And so you do a lot of invoicing. You set people up on payment plans. And when it comes down to it that they just won't pay, then you use collection bureau services. A lot of times you can do bench monitoring and make people come in and explain to you why they're not paying. But I found in my experience that the invoicing did wonders, because a lot of people, if you don't get a bill in the mail, you don't pay it. And if you set payment plans for people and you do send them an invoice, they are more likely to come in and pay it. Not always, but more likely. And like I said, I did raise the municipal court fines where I worked for 10 years, and they were around $600,000 when I started, and when I left I had them up to collections of over $2 million. So, thank you.
When I was working in justice court as a clerk, we had all of our unpaid fines we had issued warrants on, and suspended driver's licenses. People don't care. There's a warrant, they take a chance. 50-50 shot, they're gonna get caught. They're gonna take a chance driving on a suspended license. We hired a collection agency at no cost to the court and referred, I don't remember how many hundreds of cases, and received thousands of dollars monthly from these unpaid fines. The minute someone gets a notice from the collection agency that their credit's going to be affected, they paid immediately. It didn't cost the court anything. There was a convenience fee that the collection agency added onto the defendant's fines, and they were responsible for paying the collection agency. So we also got their driver's licenses reinstated. That generated the reinstatement fee with the state. If it was a DUI, there was a $200 reinstatement fee. So it was it was a revenue generating job that we did, and it was very successful. And I would continue to use the collection agency.
I believe that a collection agency is the proper way to go as well.
I think that's one of the biggest problems that we've got right now in Mineral County is we have an awful lot of outstanding fines. And although the initial inclination and idea to turn this over to collection agencies is a good one, and it does have merit and occasionally it works. However, he said, I found that I was seeing cases and speaking to people. I've been retired for about 8 years. There are people that are in collections that still owe fines from when I was working. So that system is not working. I think we need to take some of those back from the collection agencies and use our capabilities within the court to collect those fines. And there also are, under certain circumstances, when people are just refusing to pay, that there is statute that allows for $75 a day for every day you spend in jail. And if it takes that to get the fines paid off and get them out of our system and back on the road on their own, I think that's what we need to do.
If somebody is just refusing to pay a fine and they can afford to, we should follow civic judgments and collect the money as efficiently as possible. But with the economic situation in Mineral County, there probably is a percentage of people that have gotten in trouble and can't afford to pay. So I would like to see somehow setting up a program where they can work it off through civil engagement, civil service, maybe volunteering with a food bank, volunteering with Women in Timber, somehow work off the fine. And I think you should look at that pretty closely on who can and cannot pay.
Final question, and this one's fairly long, so I will read it as clearly as I can. The Montana Code of the Judicial Ethics requires that judges be impartial and avoid appearance of impropriety in their personal and professional lives. How does your background serve you in terms of demonstrating impartiality and avoiding the appearance of impropriety both personally and professionally?
Well, you have to be impartial. Again, going back to my experience in insurance, you have to treat everything impartially. Once you've made an exception, then everybody can use that against you. So even though you may want to make that exception, then you've just kind of destroyed the whole system. So you just have to avoid that in the first place. Thank you.
I think one's conduct always speaks volumes about who you are. I'm a retired military. I've got an excellent record in my 26 years in the Navy. I was also a state trooper here. Most people, in fact, if you don't know me, that's probably a good thing. But I was fairly well known in our community, and I think that everyone knew that I was a very fair and impartial law enforcement officer. And I have continued that in my retired life, and I will continue that as a judge. One needs to just lead by example.
The very nature of my personality makes me impartial. I'm just that type of person in there. My job history as well. I've had years of experience having to be impartial, and that's just who I am.
As far as being impartial, when I was acting as a clerk, I handled all the civil cases as Judge James's clerk, and I acted as her mediator during civil proceedings. The judge doesn't make any effort to mediate the cases, and she would actually step out of the room. And so I had to work with the people, both parties, and try to come to some agreement, being impartial on both sides. And you, like Dale said, you can't deviate. You've got to be impartial all the way, and you can't break the rules for one and not the other. So you need to be consistent in your impartiality.
Well, I was a high school teacher, And I was a high school teacher for a school that had a very diverse population. And I had to understand a lot of different cultural differences in the students, a lot of different learning disabilities with the students, and I dealt with a lot of at-risk students. I had to be very impartial, and let me tell you, as a high school teacher, you better be on your best behavior because they're going to know it. You cannot fool a high school student. And they would always laugh at me about that. And when I went to work at the court and left teaching, I actually had students that would come in there and they would get a ticket and they would see me in there and they would go, "Oh my gosh, Mrs. Morgan, are you everywhere?" And I'd say, "Yes, I am, and I'm keeping my eye on you." And so then, and my 10 years experience in the court, of course, you have to be impartial. And you have to be professional at all time. And I'm also well-versed and certified in HIPAA because I also worked in the medical industry, and so there's a lot of regulation there. So I'm very well-versed in that. Thank you.
Please give these ladies and gentlemen a round of applause. What do you feel is your responsibility to the community in your off-duty hours?
Well, as a police officer, you're never off duty. As a police officer, whether you're in uniform or not, you're on duty 24/7. You see something going down illegally and you're not in uniform, you attack it and take care of it. That's, to me, there's no question in that. You have to do that. It's a matter of integrity. It's just, I can't go anymore with that. I mean, that's just the way it is. I was born and raised to be on duty 24/7. 29 years in the military. You're on 24/7. 21 years civilian law enforcement. You're on duty 24/7, period.
I have to repeat what Tom said. You're on duty 24/7. You're off shift, you're at home, you're exhausted, you're tired, that phone rings, you gotta go. That's the job. No matter what calls, you're here to serve the community. You like it or not, family, holidays, they all come. If you worked in law enforcement, you know that phone rings, you gotta pick it up and go. It's our job.
Well, just like everyone said, you're 24 hours, 7 days a week, law enforcement. Everyone in the community knows who you are. Even when you're at your kid's soccer game, baseball game, you gotta show what you, be careful what you say, be careful how you say it, because you're always gonna get graded and people are gonna take things out of context. So you always gotta, people are always watching you when you don't know it and when you're not aware of it. Thanks.
For the law enforcement aspect, you are on 24 hours a day, and I think the sheriff who's here will tell you that his phone probably rings more than anything. Being in charge, it's going to be ringing more than the deputies. You're always. But when you're off duty also, the other thing you have to be responsible for is how you carry yourself in the community and what you do in the community, and show an example for the kids and older people, and work with everybody and make some meetings, go to meetings with the commissioners if you can on your off-duty time, and find out what's going on in the community, and show up here to city of Alberton and the town of Alberton to their commissioner meetings, and you're just going to be spending a lot of time as sheriff, and you need to take on that responsibility. Thanks.
Will the Sheriff's Department be more responsive to Alberton?
That's been a question I've been hearing nonstop since I've gotten back. Now, when I was here in '99 through 2004, we had Charlie Everson, and he was the Alberton resident deputy, and he was here all the time. I don't understand why there isn't somebody patrolling here more. We had 7 officers then, they have 7 officers now. Alberton time starts at the time you hit the city limit sign of Alberton, and that's when the clock starts, not when you leave the office to come to Alberton, not when you're patrolling Sear, it's when you enter the town of Alberton. They pay the sheriff's office a decent amount of money to have an officer here, a minimum of 80 hours. Not 80 and we're out of here, a minimum. And the hard part for that is to have somebody live here is finding a place for them to live. And that's what's been the hard part. If there's an opening, I'll require the first deputy I hire to try to attempt to live here. If they can't find a place, they're gonna slowly work their way out until they can find a place. But they're gonna be mandated, this is where they start their shift, or this is where they're gonna end up one way or the other. I'll work with the city. I understand another complaint is the hours. They're always patrolling the same hours. So everybody knows the officer comes in at 10 in the morning, does a couple laps, and out he goes. I have no problem getting with the city commissioners and figuring out what is the best time you want. Work with the schedule. You give us the schedule, we'll have the deputy here. Thank you.
I'm going to actually tweak that question a little bit. You answered it, even if I had tweaked it previously, you answered the question, I believe. I'm going to tweak it a little bit more. How will you ensure the Sheriff's Department will be more responsive to Alberton? Okay?
Well, everybody that works for you or you work under, they're adults. And they know that you have a certain amount of time here, 80 hours a month, to produce. And everybody needs to pull their share. So you have to know your people. And if someone's not pulling their job up here in Alberton, coming up here, then that's when you set them aside and talk to them. However, let me say, there's 80 hours a month we put up here. That is more than anybody in this county. Now, again, we have 4 officers for 1,200 square miles. 6 if you include the sheriff and undersheriff, okay? Now, we can't be everywhere at once, but we do our best to get 80 hours up here. And if you're talking about response time, there's nothing wrong with doing a phone call saying, hey, I have this call in Superior or something. If it's not life-threatening or an urgent emergency, to say, hey, Billy, I'll come up here as soon as I take care of this other call. And usually, that's all right. Thank you.
Well, first off, I live in Alberton, so response time would be cut down quite a bit. You're on 24/7, like we talked about. I've already had neighbors come to my house, ask me questions, complain about stuff being stolen. I refer them to the sheriff's office now. But we have issues with dogs here. We have issues with other stuff. The problem is deputies live so far away. If I'm elected sheriff, I live here. I know the community, and they'll uphold their responsibility of the contract.
This is something I've thought about, and my solution to the problem initially, if they can't find a place to live, I know a county commissioner that lives here that'd be more than happy to house them until they're able to find a place to live. Right, Roman? And until we have a resident deputy that I can hire in place here, I'm going to require a deputy to be responsible for Alberton for their entire shift, unless they're called away for another incident. And I'm going to rotate all the deputies. And part of the reason I want to do that is so they can get to know the community. They're going to stop and talk to Mr. Mead mowing his lawn. They're going to get to know them, and that's going to bring that trust factor in, and they're going to help us out with different cases that happens. So Roman's going to help me out, and then once he's able to live, or she's able to live here on her own, that's great. And until that happens, I will have everybody rotate shifts coming to Alberton. Thank you.
What process will you use to pick an undersheriff?
You know, I've decided that I'm not going to announce who my undersheriff will be until after the primary's done. The undersheriff has to be an individual that has the same goals that I have. I'll have to have an undersheriff that has the same philosophies that I have. You have to mesh together and work together. If you can't do that, then it's a pointless process. And I do have a few people in mind, and there's one currently at the sheriff's office. So that's how I'm going to do it. It has to be someone that I can mesh with and work with every day on every issue. Thank you.
I'm also like Tom. I'm not going to disclose who my candidates are to be undersheriff. Like I said previously, I have 3, one in-house, one local, and one out of town. You have to trust them. You have to work with them closely. When you stand in front of the commissioners arguing for money, you got to know they're going to have your back or out on the street. That goes with every deputy, but you have to be really close-knit with your undersheriff. They're your partner and your lifeline. I'm going to hold that until the campaign's done, and we'll disclose then.
Well, me also, I'm, you gotta have the same values and philosophies, your undersheriff. So when you're gone, you know everything's being run the same, or close to it, as much as it can be. So, we'll see after the election time. Thanks.
The process I'm going to use is follow the state law. The state law says the undersheriff works at the convenience of the sheriff. The sheriff can pick his undersheriff, and no one can tell him otherwise, as long as he's capable of being a law enforcement officer, I guess, up to that point. But I'm going to use that. I've got, same as these guys, people in mind that I will bring in and pick my undersheriff, and that's the process I'm going to use. Thank you.
Actually, you're not done. So,
That's not.
all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to ask each of the candidates today one question. You have 1 minute to answer. And since you guys are up here, you can answer from the stage. For those candidates who are out in the audience, I'm going to have you, after these gentlemen answer, have you stand up from where you are, and if you could just belt out your answer like this so that everyone can hear, then we'll do fine. Summarize in 1 minute why you are the best candidate for the position that you seek.
Well, I believe my 17 years of law enforcement gives me that experience that I can be the best for you. I also understand about budgets and working with employees. Not only do I have my law enforcement, but I got 2 years of labor relations dealing with employee-employer problems and ironing out union contracts with them. I also understand budgets. I've been going to a lot of the commissioner meetings, understand Mineral County's in some tough times, and we got to do more with less. We all want the programs. We all want to bring in school resource officers and dogs, but the thing is, we have 7 of us, and we have to work within our budget, and it is not getting any bigger. And grants are great, but at the end of that grant, you have to pay for that officer, and we can't afford that. Thank you.
Well, with my experience over 5 years with detention, with my peace officer experience over 7 years, and the responsibilities I have now within the department. I'm a deputy coroner, I'm a field training officer, I'm a senior breath test specialist, and I'm a search and rescue coordinator. So I have a lot of aspects, the way to run it, experience with the jail, know how the jails need to be run, proper procedures. I'm in the department right now. I know the issues that need to be addressed, and I will address them. Thank you.
Like I've said in the past, it's all the positions I've held: detention, probation, deputy, and my current position as an investigator and probation officer. I sit on the Mineral County Sexual Assault Response Team, the child protection team right now that helps and works with kids of child and physical and sexual abuse crimes. I'm in the community. I'm there talking with them. I walk into the schools, like we're having a meeting tomorrow about drugs. I'm in the community. They know me, and I'm a town councilman, sit on the conservation district. I'm connected with the town, and it's where I want to live and grow and raise my family.
I was born and raised in Superior, Montana. Graduated from high school there in 1982. I have 21 years of civilian law enforcement experience, 29 years in the Air National Guard as a security forces member, which is the Air Force version of the law enforcement. I've deployed on many occasions, Iraq, carrying out missions in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. I've told you about my visions and where I want to go. a COPS grant will pay for a school resource officer. There's so many things that I know I can do if I'm given the opportunity to do that. So the only thing that I ask you is don't vote for me because I'm Doc Bauer's son. Vote for me because you know I can do the job. Thank you.
Okay, I have extensive court experience, along with experience in the court, of managing the court, also in researching legal decisions. I also have a huge financial background. I understand the software inside and out. I have a business degree in management and marketing. I also have an education degree. I have where I taught business law, accounting, marketing, math, business math, and I've taught not only high school students but also adults in adult education settings. So I'm very well versed in writing curriculum and helping to train people as well as training my staff. I also have a master's degree in legal studies, and I guess I have a passion for the job, and I think I'd be a great candidate.
Thank you. Julie?
I feel I'm the best candidate for this position due to my great experience. Years of working with the public and software used by the court has given me the skills and tools needed to be a fair and effective justice of the peace. I already have a relationship established with the towns of Alberton and Superior, and feel transitioning to their town judge roles would run smoothly as well. And I don't know if all of you realize that your justice of the peace is going to be your town of Alberton judge as well, and the local judge for the city of Superior. So you need to be able to handle the city cases as well as your county cases.
I've been living here my entire life. I've been massive and my insurance background routinely was involved in large cash and check transactions. So I know how to do checks and balances. I recently completed college. I think my academic accomplishments displayed I'm able to learn the duties of the position, and plus my civic engagement as the job I'm concerned.
Thank you.
As far as the office manager goes,
My years of experience in personnel, administration, and budgeting matters in the military gives me a leg up there. I also have experience as a law enforcement officer, which gives me a unique perspective on what happens prior to getting to court, in court, and after court. I'm also the only candidate that has actual judicial experience, and with all of that combined, I think that I'm the right candidate at the right time for the job here in Mineral County.
Thank you. Mark?
As Justice of the Peace, I can make a difference and ensure that there's honesty and integrity in justice court.
Once again, my name is Dwight Simons, and I feel I'm the best candidate for the West End Commissioner because I've lived here for 41 years. I've seen Mineral County change, for good, for bad. I've seen just about anything that can happen here. I'm currently your commissioner, so I have 6 years experience under my belt. I sit on the board of the Counties Coalition, which deals with funding for Mineral County. I sit on the Mineral County Health Board. I sit on numerous other boards. I sit on the Aging Council. I just think that with my experience, my time, and my patience, that I will make good, honest decisions for you, and I won't make hasty decisions. Sometimes decisions get too hasty, and that's when you get in trouble. I will make the best decisions possible for you for Mineral County. I love living here. I hope you have your vote.
Thank you. Tony?
I've owned gas in Mineral County since 1970. Dealt with a lot of different communities, foreign service, state, county. Also, I've been a basketball official for 27 years. My wife and I managed the Lincoln County Fair in Oregon for 27 years. And was on the conservation board there for Oregon. We had the salmon issue that to deal with. I feel I'm the best qualified since I've been self-employed all these years and have dealt with all faces of government. I appreciate your vote. June 3rd.
I think I'm the best candidate because I've got the most time. And basically, and
I will do the job properly. I also have the experience of being on Mineral County Planning Board, the West End Fire Department Board, and a previous member of the West End Cemetery Board. I think all I needed now is to get some kind of hospital board. We could have covered them from birth to One thing that I'm really proud of is that I was the instrumental person in the formation of the Deerwood Park Water District. So our little subdivision is now a water district. It's an interesting process to go through, and it was, again, we've accomplished it. I've worked with budgets. Probably the number one is started at Lucy Camp, Flathead Lake Lucy Camp, many years ago now. It's 1985. The camp is still growing small. I had to do the budget, hire the staff. Am I out of time?
Yes.
Anyway, and that was quite a responsibility. So, but I'm not afraid of budgets. I'm not afraid of kind of reacting. I'm not afraid to add more somebody else.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I don't see Nicholas Schwader in the. Are there any other HD 14 candidates who perhaps came in a little later? No? All right. Okay, first of all, thank you so much to the audience for attending, and thank you so much to the candidates. You all deserve a round of applause. Seriously. Thank you.